This is an interview for the Oral History Project of the Eastham Historical Society and for the Council on Aging and Friends of the Council on Aging. We are in Sandy Szedlak's dining room, and the interviewers are Bev Hobbs, Karen Harmon, and myself, Marca Daley. Bev, I think you have a question.
Yeah, so Sandy, I was wondering, how did you get interested in working with seniors? At the time, you were a fairly young woman, and did you have relatives that were older? Did you have a lot of experience with older people, or what was it that got you involved with seniors?
I had probably none of the above.
Okay.
We had just moved here in 1979. I had been an elementary school teacher for 14 years in Michigan, and we were moving to join my father's real estate office, and so I was not supposed to work, right?
Yeah.
I was going to have a little vacation, but I realized that that was quite impossible. I saw an advertisement in the Cape Codder, I think, of director of the Council on Aging, which I thought, ooh, wow, and it's right here in Eastham.
Yeah.
That sounds great. So I interviewed for the job. I think there were probably 4 or 5 who interviewed, and I was offered the job. Well, I should go backwards. In 1974, the state of Massachusetts, or Commonwealth of Massachusetts, said that every town should have a council on aging.
Okay.
And so each town did whatever they did. The Council on Aging in Eastham, May Dunphy was in charge of that. They used to meet in the police station where the rec department is now, okay, right by town hall. That used to be the police station.
The little brick building.
The little tiny building. That was the police station, and I think they met there. They had a room that they would come off and on. They had no money. I don't think the town funded them much. And they did what they could. They probably had 4 or 5 people. And then Faye Shook became involved. She lived directly across the street from the Fairway, where now that front building is, with the pot shop. That was Faye's house.
Oh.
Before Main Street Mercantile was built.
Okay.
And so she did a lot of the work herself. Again, she was a volunteer. There was an organization, what was it called? Eastham Seniors or something like that, which got very upset because the Council on Aging came in, because they thought they were going to lose all their power. And there was a real power struggle between the Council on Aging and this Eastham group, because most of the seniors were involved with this. It was more of a...
Is it a social group?
Yeah, it was more of a social group. They didn't do, any of the other kinds of things. It was just a social group. But there was a real problem there, which
That's
I
interesting.
ended having... I was supposed to solve that too.
Oh, good.
And so, probably in 79, Faye wrote this grant to the state.
Yeah.
And the state all provides these grants every year to the town. It's based on your population, a certain amount of money per person who's a senior.
Yeah.
And basically, you can apply for just about anything. It has to be approved. And so we did a variety of different things through the years. But they had applied for a grant for a part-time director because they had no one paid at that time. And so that's the job that I applied for, and I thought, gee, this is going to be very lucrative. And it was a $5,000 grant for a 19-hour position for the year, okay? And so I took it.
Did they give you any kind of a budget or anything like that?
I was hired in probably October, November.
Yeah.
At that time, they were already at the fairway, and we were in the part that is the bar now. The town agreed to pay the rent on that building, and they must have been given a small budget.
Yeah.
I know that when I started, I used to have to fight for a roll of stamps. I mean, that's how inconsequential we were. I started there for 6 months, we were in the fairway. Then the town decided no. And we have this wonderful space for you in the basement of Town Hall. And we said, well, it wasn't handicapped accessible or anything. And
Yeah.
well, this is where you need to go. So if you go down those stairs, well, it may not be anymore, but if you go down those stairs that you saw the sign,
Yeah.
on the left was a tiny, tiny office. It was probably about from here, window-wise.
10 by 12 or
Yeah.
something?
Very tiny, no heat, very damp. And that was my office. And then my secretary sat out in the hall next to the boiler. And you walk this way, and the town accountant was over here in an office. And then there was all this space around those support columns that was free. And then if you walked to the back of the building, and this is where you would be voting, but it was a big, long hall.
Yeah.
You know, no offices or anything. And it was almost like a gymnasium.
They had
Well,
Halloween parties down there and town suppers,
Yeah.
chicken pie suppers.
Everything during that.
It
So
was-
it was a very large space, tables, chairs, all of that, with a kitchen. So that was ours too, okay. So we started activities in that little room or in the back room. I mean, that's where we operated until '87 when we
Wow.
moved over to the building. And we had elder services provided meals, so we had meals a couple
Yeah.
times a week, but no staff, so I used to run back and heat up the meals, you know, and we'd serve. And at that time, though, there was a huge influx of seniors who had just retired,
Okay.
all of whom had volunteered where they lived. Okay?
This is the baby boomer generation.
Yeah, always volunteered.
They volunteered.
They came here and had nothing.
Mm.
And so it was at the same time, you know, we started talking about the building. I gave them a volunteer opportunity. And so it was very easy to
Yeah.
get people involved, and particularly in a cause like this, and so on. So we were very lucky.
But that generation was also very social. They came post-World War II.
Yeah.
They were a very social group, so that must have helped you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find that the people, like the senior center sometimes has a stigma now, that they think it's all old people? Do you think it had the same stigma back then?
I don't think so, because all those old people were the ones who were building, you know,
Yeah.
the thing, so that they had a real investment, because all those same people who were involved were major in all of the things we used to do.
Okay.
So I was given a list of things that needed to be done when I was hired. All right, one was to do a mailing list, because they didn't even have a compilation of that kind of thing. The other, do a newsletter,
Mhm.
set up a friends group, probably improving relations between the two different factions here
Yeah.
and so forth, and whatever else came along, okay?
Many of those things are still going,
Right,
That
yeah.
set them up.
The same mission.
Yeah.
Same thing. At that time as well, since all the towns were kind of in various states of operation,
Mhm.
we used to have directors' meetings at least once a month. All of us got together, kind of sharing what we were doing and how to approach different things and so forth. I got a great deal of help from Chatham, which is, we were talking with Karen, Chatham was probably the farthest along of any of us. They'd already set up a friends group, they were incorporated, they just had a whole bunch of things now.
Yeah.
They gave me direction on how to incorporate the friends, and which I did with the state. We set up the bylaws, we did all of this kind of stuff. So we had a friends group, and I put, this was before computers too,
Yeah.
right? So
Manual.
I had to manually type all the address label things, you know,
Yeah.
and we didn't even have copy machines, kind of, well, I guess we did, but the senior center didn't have one. I think I used to make copies at our real estate office for things, you know,
That
and
sounds
stuff.
tedious.
Yeah, but no computers, so we had to set up the address labels and then write the newsletter. And my sister used to type the newsletter because she had an electric typewriter. You know, type the newsletter for us. But all of that was going. I advertised for a meeting for the friends.
Yep.
Okay, so I had maybe 6 or 8 people who attended that first meeting.
Mhm.
And, you know, we sort of laid out what we'd like to do, that they need to help raise money for the, you know, seniors and so on and so forth. In '82, you know, I can still see it. We were in that mess of the town hall,
Yeah.
in that room by
Next
the
to the boiler.
Yeah, sitting at this table, and at that point there probably were 10 friends who came, and I said, we need to build a building.
Yeah.
Our board has decided that we can no longer deal with this nonsense. We need to build a building. And they just looked at me like I must be crazy, right? But,
Well, they probably understood that you needed to be in a different place.
yeah, I'm sure they did, but how do 10 or 12 people raise the money that's going to be needed? But we did it. I mean, they got certain people, and I can't remember, you know, it was, well, this one on the board knew this one, and so on, so they sort of pulled people in. And then Arnett and Don Sander was heavily involved, Gene Birkins, George and Violet Pratt. I mean, all these people who sort of just grabbed the reins. John Powers.
Yeah.
I don't know how John got to be chairman of this group, but I think maybe he just volunteered to operate it. And his whole thing was, because this is a community building, we ought to have all the community donate,
Yeah.
you know, to it. Any of the tradesmen, get involved, donate your services, do this kind of thing so we can keep the costs down.
And was the intent not to go to the town to ask for any money, Sandy?
They would not provide any.
Okay, yeah. No sense asking.
I know. As I told Bev, we discovered early on that the town had taken land
Mhm.
as tax taking and specifically designated it for a senior center.
That's good.
That's why we are there, where we are. People
Interesting.
complain about the grade and all of this kind of thing. It perhaps wasn't a place where we had thought to be, but that was designated for a senior center. That was why we are there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And including the land would have made it much more expensive,
yeah,
Right,
even, 30, 40 years ago.
right.
yeah.
Would have cost that much
Right.
more.
And I think there's like 2.5 acres, it's an L shape. And it
Yeah,
was taken for taxes, and, which they were doing a lot of at that time, and that's what the designation was. So, we approached, or John and the chairman of the COA board approached the selectmen and said, we would like to build a building. How can we go about doing it? What was decided was that the Friends would lease the land,
Mhm.
no responsibility to the town, that we would build the building, have insurance on it, all of that kind of thing. At the end of the process, it would be given to the town, and the town would assume all the expenses.
Now, was that the land only or the land and the building?
The town owned the land,
And so we
Yes.
were giving them the
they're
building.
gonna give the building.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, and so in '87, town meeting, May of town meeting, we gave the building to the town, and the town accepted the building. So
wow.
it is a town building,
Right.
and always has been. I mean, that was the agreement. But the agreement also, there was the landscaping you'll have to take care of, and you'll have to do this, and you'll have to do that. And like all those plantings were put in by volunteers.
Sandy, how long did it take from when your group decided that we're gonna do this, and you began the fundraising, and you actually started the construction?
I think the thing said '82 is when we started. And it was money was raised just by yard sales, barn sales, raffles, all of these sort of bake sales, little stuff. And Ardith and Jean decided that there had to be something that would bring in more money, and that would be constant. My husband, Frank, knew the Delaneys from the real estate, okay?
Yeah.
And the building was empty, after the mitten shop, which I went to as a kid. The building was empty. They really wanted to make sure that commercial use was continued, right?
So
And
now, for clarity, we're speaking of the current thrift shop, which was Sam Brackett's
General
store
store, yeah.
and became the Mitten Factory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so Frank talked with the Delaneys and said, we'd like to do a thrift shop.
Mhm.
Would you donate the space and that kind of thing? And actually, I think they did donate the space for a while. But and then we started paying rent and so on and so forth as it is now. But that was in '85, so that was a source of income that kept coming in, so that we didn't have to do so much of the other.
Fundraising and-
They also did a massive mailing
Mhm.
to all residents in the town, to all homeowners in the town, not residents,
Okay.
because there were a lot of people who were just summer or that kind of thing, out of town people. And so we gave them a 3-year pledge window if they wanted to do that, and included in this mailing the pledge cards and all of this. And that's where most of the money came from, were pledges. A lot of people used their workplace as, you can
Reimagine.
matching
Matching
funds, yes.
donations and stuff. We went to some of the local groups, the Bangs Foundation or something, some of the local foundations for money, anywhere we could go.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of things just kept going, and doing. And then John was just bombarding all of these people to give their services. So, I mean, everyone in town probably was involved, like Radke did the paving, and I think only charged the labor, didn't charge for, it was that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The Capellos put in the wells, for a small amount of money. And then Cape Associates agreed to allow us to do anything that we could do. They also had gone up to the state, got approval for not putting in cast iron plumbing, which is supposed to be in a public building. Okay, and they agreed to allow the copper put in. They also went up for the elevator because supposedly you're supposed to have a major elevator.
And all of this is for the thrift store?
No, this is for the senior center.
Okay.
The elevator, we have a chairlift now. They agreed to allow that chairlift as opposed to a real elevator. So, I mean, that's what kept.
That's amazing that they were able to get all of those exceptions from the state.
Yeah.
Right, and all the permitting done.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, a major kind of thing. I had a gentleman who used to come and wander in and I had a little tiny couch in that room. And he'd sit in the couch and he'd just sit there, for hours and just nothing to do. And you knew he was missing some upstairs, and I thought, what a shame. What are we going to do for this poor gentleman? And it was right at the time where the day center concept came in, adult day center.
Right.
And one of our board members was really into that. And she says, we really need to do a day center for these people. And we wrote a grant to the state again and asked for the funding for the day center. And I think we also got a grant from Elder Services, so it was a combination kind of thing. To hire a director, and that's all we had, was just one person. But we were allowed to operate out of the Methodist Church in Eastham, in the back there, overlooking the water. And that operated from like 85, I think we started that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they were going to move into the senior center. And when I went over there finally and looked at the building, I just, as they say, lost it. And just told our board, there has to be a window in here. I don't care what you have to do, but a window needs to be in here. Well, they all looked at me like, anyway, they came with concrete cutters, just sliced it down, pushed it out, and it's right there, still under the driveway.
Really?
That's what makes it great.